Hey, how are you? My name is Roy. I make money online, and I'm also a husband and a dad of three beautiful children. And I do chores around the house. And, sometimes when you make money online, people don't necessarily believe that you're a real person. So I'm making this video for two reasons. One, to show that I am a real person, a real dude. I do real work, real hard jobs, those kinds of things. And today I'm going to be doing a sweat joint on a copper pipe. And I've never done one of those before. But hey, I've heard that if you want to learn how to do something, one of the best ways is to teach other people how to do it. So I watched a video on YouTube that makes me the expert, right?
So here's a picture of the old tap before I cut it off that was leaking. And if you look close right up in there, you will see that it looks like it could twist off, maybe, but it didn't. And if you look down below, you can see how bad it was leaking. All right, so a little backstory what we got going on here. This was the old valve. The old valve was here, and we thought that it twisted off, but it didn't. It was sweated on there. And this is the pipe. See, I thought it twisted off. I ended up twisting the copper just a little bit when I tried taking it off, but it doesn't leak. Maybe it will at some point, and I might end up replacing that pipe. Hey, maybe that'll be another video. Who knows? But anyway, here is the pipe right after I got this off. I went to Lowe's because I need to get another tap on here. And this is Teflon tape for when I thread this into that. This is going to be soldered onto there with a sweat connection. I believe that's what they call it. This is a flux brush. This is solder. This is your all-purpose flux paste. And this is your sand cloth for cleaning up the copper and also scarring it so that it works the way it should. This is a 30-year-old blowtorch that my dad bought a long time ago, and I watched him do one of these connections. Well, more correctly, I watched a plumber do it that he hired, but I'm not hiring somebody. I'm going to do it myself. So the plan is, and you have to do this too, you got to scar the inside of this with the sandpaper so that the flux flows in there like it's supposed to. And I mean the solder, excuse me. And you got to clean off your pipe and get it cleaned up before you do the flux. It's actually a relatively easy job, even though it sounds really complicated. So that's one of the reasons why I'm making this video. This is the first time I've ever done one of these, but I want to show that you can do this. And now I know that you can get one of those little shark bite valves that just slip on. So before somebody jumps in the comments and they're like, oh, you could have just done this. The reason why I'm not doing one of those is because they rely on a rubber seal. And once that rubber seal goes away or corrodes or, doesn't corrode, apologies. Once it dries up and becomes hard, cracked, no longer works, then you're going to get a leak. Now, I live in Arizona. It's extremely hot in the summertime. There's a lot of heat here, and rubber tends to dry up, which is what happens to the tap that was there after 10 15 years. The rubber dried up and the tap started leaking, and I could have repaired it. The Lowe's didn't have the repair kit that I needed, so anyways, we opted to replace the valve, which we thought was going to be easy. All right, and the other thing I could do is I could do a compression fitting, which uses a ferrule that slips over the pipe and then a nut and clamps on. The problem with those is ferrules actually damage the copper to make the connection in the seal. It's a compression. It compresses around the copper and it actually damages it a little bit where it does. And you saw how much copper pipe I have left. It's not a whole lot. So if I did a compression fitting and then it leaked 10, 15 years from now, guess what? Then I absolutely have to replace that pipe. So I'm going for the more professional option, which is the sweat joint. And if you noticed, then I'm changing it so that the next time I need to replace the tap, now this is a ball valve in there, so there's no rubber. So this one has a chance of lasting a lot longer than the old one. But if I do end up needing to replace it again, I should just be able to twist it off rather than have to redo this sweat joint. So hopefully this is my one and only time of doing this. But hey, once you know how to do it, friends, family, whatever, handyman, you can end up doing it again. Maybe it's even fun. Who knows? All right, let's get started. All right, so I am opening the
sanding cloth here, and it's really a sanding cloth. It's not like normal sandpaper. It's got a material backing to it, and you can just rip it, get yourself a little piece. And this is going to be fun because there's just not a lot of room in here, not a lot of that pipe left, and you got to make sure this is good and clean as well as scarred up so that the solder sticks, and you got to have a real clean connection. So I ended up needing to get a longer piece of sandpaper because the first one that I got was too short to really get any good sanding going on. And like I said, you gotta get it really nice and clean. This is probably honestly gonna take me the longest. Solder on there from before, and I'm trying to get it all off. I could heat it up and take a rag and try to get it off. I think that would take even longer. The water's already been off. Kids need to go potty, those kinds of things. I'm trying to hurry here. Okay, as you can see, it's looking pretty clean. There's some spots under there that was pretty hard, but I'm down to the copper pretty much all the way around. See if I can get it to focus a little better. There we go. Now the next thing is going to be to scar the inside of this because it's all bright, shiny new copper. They do make a special brush for this, but I'm just going to take that smaller piece of paper that I did before and just sand away in there till it's nice and scarred up. Alright, now if you can see that, it's nice and scarred up in there all the way to that little stop where you shove it in and it hits the pipe. And I tried cramming my baby finger in there, but it didn't quite get all the way to the stop, and I wanted it scarred to the stop. And I tried just wadding up the stop, but that didn't work either. So what I ended up doing is grabbing one of the flux brushes and wrapping it tight, the sanding cloth tight around the handle, and then using that. It worked really well, pretty quick. Okay, the next thing you want to do is check your fit, because you got to get this all the way on there before you can do your torch and your solder. And it's having a hard time, and if you see, there's some solder here that's just a little bit too much. I gotta sand her a little better. Okay, so I sanded it down a little better. Now this goes on all the way, and I can see that it's all the way to, there's a stop in there that it stops at, and that's where it goes. And it comes off too. So now you got to get the flux on there. It's really an acid that kind of also etches the copper, and then that'll dry in the solder when I heat it up. That's going to be kind of fun to do this because I really don't have a lot of room to get my solder in there. And you want to have the flame going opposite of where you're going to solder. So you're going to flame here and solder up there. And you don't want to get it too hot. Package says it melts about 419 degrees Fahrenheit. If you get it too hot, the solder will just bubble and it won't do what you want it to do. But even though that sounds complicated, I don't think that's really too bad. So next we're going to start the torch. Well, no, we're going to get our flux on there. So give me just a second. All right, so this is our flux in the brush. I'm just going to brush it in there. Kind of hard when I can't hold it because I'm holding the phone well, and you can't really even see. So anyways, I'm going to brush it like that. I'm going to stop recording so I can do it with both hands, but here I'll do the pipe too. But what you do is you just get this good business on there, and it's going to be, like I said, it's the acid. When it heats up, it's going to etch the copper a little, and it's also going to dry in that solder when it's hot enough to melt it. All right, so I got the flux on there. Now we're just gonna shove that on there. It goes on a little easier with that lube of the flux. Now it's time to start the old torch. See if I can get you guys at an angle here that you can watch. This is a really old torch. This is a really old bottle of propane, but there's still some in there. I think it's like 30 years old, but it's had this cap on it. It still works. I actually used it to take that piece off. And anyways, I have more bottles of propane, but I'd rather use this one up. Gave me a little anxiety. I'm not sure how dangerous that is, but still produces flame and heat, which is what we need, so who cares, we're doing it, right? The instructions say when you do this, you just twist that on hand tight. Still has the instructions after 30 years. Pretty cool. I remember when my dad bought this, like I said before. All right, so now the fun part. What you do is, here's your striker, and if you see in there, there's this little flint. Take it apart. Ooh, I can't see the camera. If you can, there's this little flint that wears down. When it strikes against the thing there, it makes some sparks. So what you do is you turn this on just a little bit. You'll hear it hiss. There it is. And then it's a little hard to do with one hand, so I'm gonna shut you guys off for a second. Okay, got the torch going, and got my solder ready. Gotta turn the torch up all the way, or high anyways. And we're just gonna heat the bottom of this guy, and you touch up here. You can see see there, it's starting to melt. And you just kind of pull the heat away once it starts to go. Like I said, you don't want to get it too hot. You just want to go all the way around and heat that hot. I've never done this before, guys, so alright. Turn the torch off. Let's take a look. I think I got solder all the way around. Looks like I do. Looks like I do on the inside too. I can see solder all the way around on the pipe. So now the next step is you just wait for Betsy here to cool down. Again, or not again, but if you're this close to the house, just be really careful not to light your house on fire. Just saying. All right, while we wait for that to cool down, I'm gonna get my Teflon on the tap here. So Teflon, you just do that, comes apart, then your Teflon's in there. A lot of you, if you get a project or you buy like something online and it comes with Teflon, I highly recommend you not using the cheap China Teflon that comes with whatever you bought off Amazon. Just tip there and get some good stuff from Lowe's or Home Depot. Now, when you put Teflon on, wrap it the way that it screws on, not off. If you wrap it counterclockwise, then when you go to screw something on, you're taking the Teflon off and it gets jumbled up and it doesn't make a very good seal. So when you put it on, go clockwise. That way it stays on when you go to tighten it up. And try not to get any on the very end. You just want it on the threads, whatever you're doing. Sometimes if you get it on the end, especially if you're doing like a compression fitting, you can cause a leak. So tips there. I have done Teflon quite a bit. I just haven't never done sweat connections because it's something that's always kind of scared me. But today I hit it and I'm not paying a plumber, and I got to get the water back on for the family. So here we go, boys. Copper cools down pretty quickly. I just barely finished putting that Teflon on there, and I can touch it. It's kind of hot still, but not too bad. I'm going to give it maybe 5-10 more minutes, because if I hold it any longer than what I'm trying to do here, it burns a little. So we're going to. Now, I didn't research it enough before I started doing this, but those of you that are plumbers, if you watch this, drop me in the comments all the things I did wrong so I can do better next time. appreciate it. Or, you know, pro tips that you may have for a noob like myself that's doing a sweat fit for the very first time. Thanks for your time. And one question I have is if it's hot like that, can you like pour cold water over it to cool it down? Does that work? Or does that, like, I don't know, make the solder hard and crack or something and then leak? I don't know. Anyways, curious about that. I'm going to give it maybe 10 more minutes here, and then I'll be putting my tap on and call it a day. I got 2 crescent wrenches ready because I know that that's just a 1/2 inch little itty bitty copper pipe, and I already twisted her once today, so a little bit, not too bad, back in there. So I'm gonna have 1 wrench on here and 1 wrench on this guy when I put him on, and it's gonna be threaded in there. Now the other problem is I want my tap to be facing down, right? So I got to decide at some point when it gets going around there, and I got quite a bit of Teflon on there, where I need to stop, because if I try tightening it more, I'm not gonna be able to go all the way around, and I don't want to twist my copper in there. Well, I'm gonna have a wrench on here, but I have, you know, I could literally go all the way till the threads go away. So, and this is tapered on here so that you can, you know, you got some wiggle room in how you do it. That's just about cool enough that I want to try this, but not quite. Old 30-year-old torch is cooled down enough that I can put this in there with the styrofoam, so put my torch away. I was wondering how long I need to wait before I turn the water on, which answered my question that I asked earlier. And the good old Google says wait 2 to 3 minutes before you pressurize the line and add water so that the solder doesn't crack and break. So be due to an extreme temperature change. Now the solder is cool enough I can actually touch it now, and I'm pretty sure it's been 2 or 3 minutes, so pretty sure we're good to go. Alrighty, so this is my really cheap crescent, so it's going to be the holder of the situation, and this is my Crescent brand crescent wrench. It's also kind of old. I think it was my dad's, and it's going to be the main one that I use. Here we go, boys. Now that's getting pretty tight, so I'm just going to finish going around. Oops. Until that's facing down how I want it. Okay. Now, of course, if it leaks right there, I'll do 1 more twist around, but I don't think I'll need to. Now, this is a ball valve, so it should actually last a little longer. I'm going to turn this on because I don't want a lot of air pressure right here when I turn the water on. Whenever you turn the water off to your house, you always want to, when you go to turn it back on, you always want to open a valve, hopefully as far away from the shutoff as possible. This is literally the opposite corner of where my shutoff is, so this should work. Now it says off is that way, on is this way. Again, there's a ball in there, not a plunger type tap, so we're gonna turn that on. I'm going to remove things that are going to get wet from down here, including my trusty 30-year-old torch. And let's go turn the water on. Just to be safe, I also had one of the kids turn on the kitchen sink tap. Can't hurt. You don't want any air pressure again getting in your lines and causing more leaks and breaks and more of a not so fun day. This is my main off and on for the house. Now another tip, when you turn your main water on for your house, don't ever just full bore go. Kind of go slow and get the pressure flowing a little bit, and then once we're at that point, now we can go full bore. There we go. Let's go check. Well, there's my tap. She be working. turn it off. All right. I don't see no leakies. It's really the only way you can check on a sweat fit if it leaks is if you turn the water on and there's leaks, but no leaky. There we go, brand new tap. It's been dripping for months, causing me a bigger water bill. That's it, guys. That's my first sweat fitting on a copper pipe. If you found this video helpful, please give me a like and a subscribe. Drop me a comment. Let me know where you're from, what what kind of day you're having for your honeydew list, and hopefully this helped save you some money in paying for a plumber.